He was the man who could silence stadiums with a single note.
When we were kids, when we were young, things seemed so perfect, you know.
Yet behind the glitter, the voice, and the fame, Freddie Mercury was hiding a devastating secret that would ultimately take his life. But here's the shocking truth. Even today, nobody really knows how Freddie contracted AIDS. So what actually happened? Why did he keep it hidden for so long? And how did his final years reshape how the world looked at AIDS, music, and the LGBTQ+ community? Before diving into the illness, let's remember who Freddie really was. Born Farouk Bulsara in Zanzibar in 1946, Freddie moved to London with his family in the 1960s. Shy, artistic, and eccentric, he transformed into the flamboyant performer we know today. By the time Queen formed in 1970, Freddie's voice and stage presence were unlike anything rock had ever seen. Think about it. 4 octaves, an ability to shift from delicate falsetto to raw power in a single breath, and the charisma to hold 70,000 people in the palm of his hand. Freddie wasn't just a singer, he was a showman, an artist, a force of nature. Songs like Bohemian Rhapsody, We Are the Champions, Don't Stop Me Now, and Somebody to Love weren't just hits. They became anthems that defined generations. And Freddie Mercury? He became a global icon, someone who seemed untouchable. But behind the stage lights, something darker was brewing. By the early 1980s, whispers about a mysterious illness were spreading in the United States and Europe. At first, it was called the gay plague, a cruel and dangerous label. Later, doctors identified it as AIDS, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Caused by HIV, it destroyed the immune system, leaving the body defenseless against infections. Here's the terrifying part. In the 1980s, there was no treatment, no cure. An HIV diagnosis felt like a death sentence. And for Freddie Mercury, who lived a lifestyle full of parties, partners, and passion, it was only a matter of time before the virus crept into his life. But Freddie never became a poster child for the disease, at least not while he was alive. In fact, he went to great lengths to keep it hidden, which raises the big question: how did Freddie contract AIDS? Let's be honest, Freddie Mercury lived fast, loved hard, and never apologized for it. His stage persona was drenched in sex appeal, tight onfits, dramatic movements, and a confidence that blurred the lines between masculine and feminine. He wasn't afraid to shock, to seduce, or to provoke. Offstage, he lived just as wildly. Freddie admitted to being extremely promiscuous, often saying love was like playing Ruslant roulette. It wasn't about who, it was about living fully in the moment. And here's where the mystery deepens. Freddie had both male and female lovers. His first great love was a woman, Mary Austin, while his last was a man, Jim Hutton. In between, countless partners, often nameless, sometimes in wild parties that blurred the line between pleasure and danger. So pinpointing exactly how he contracted HIV? Impossible. Even Freddie himself didn't know. Before Jim Hutton, before the scandals, there was Mary Austin. Freddie met Mary in the early 1970s when Queen was just starting out. She was quiet, grounded, and kind, the complete opposite of Freddie's flamboyant personality. But somehow they clicked. Freddie once said, "All my lovers asked me why they couldn't replace Mary, but it's simply impossible. The only friend I've got is Mary, and I don't want anybody else." They lived together, and for a while they were even engaged. But in the mid-1970s, Freddie confessed to Mary that he was bisexual. She disagreed. She thought he was gay. That revelation ended their romance, but it didn't end their bond. Mary remained his closest confidant until the very end. In fact, Freddie left her the majority of his estate. She's the only person who knows where his ashes are buried, a secret she's kept to this day. And here's something important. Mary never contracted HIV, which means she wasn't the source of his illness. Fast forward to the mid-1980s. By this time, Freddie was already showing signs of illness. Enter Jim Hutton, a hairdresser who would become Freddie's partner for the last 6 years of his life. They were inseparable even as Freddie's health declined. But when Freddie died in 1991, the press turned vicious. Headlines accused Jim of infecting Freddie. Others accused Freddie of infecting Jim. The truth is, Jim tested positive after Freddie, which means Freddie likely passed it on to him, not the other way around. And even then, Jim stayed by Freddie, caring for him until the very end. Here's the heartbreaking part. Freddie never publicly confirmed he had AIDS until November 23, 1991, just one day before he died. Imagine carrying that secret for years, while tabloids speculated, fans whispered, and the media hounded him. Photos of Freddie in his final years show a thinner, weaker man hiding behind sunglasses and makeup. Paparazzi stalked his every move, trying to capture his decline. At one point, Freddie even stopped treatment for his Kaposi sarcoma, a cancer linked to AIDS, because he didn't want to be photographed looking frail. The pressure, the shame, the relentless headlines, it all played a part in his decision to retreat from public life. By 1991, Freddie's health was rapidly failing, but he still worked, still recorded, still poured every ounce of energy into his art. Think about this. Songs like The Show Must Go On were recorded when Freddie could barely stand. His voice was fading, his body weak, but he delivered one of the most powerful performances of his career. It was as if he knew this would be his farewell. On November 24, 1991, Freddie Mercury passed away in his Kensington home. He was just 45 years old. The world mourned, but it wasn't just the loss of a rock legend. It was the loss of a man who had lived fearlessly, unapologetically, and on his own terms. So, how did Freddie contract AIDS? We don't know. We may never know. And maybe that's not the point. Because Freddie Mercury was so much more than a diagnosis. He was a pioneer, an icon, and a symbol of freedom in music and life. His death put a spotlight on AIDS, forcing conversations that many people wanted to avoid. And in some ways, Freddie's passing gave the crisis a human face, one the world couldn't ignore. Even today, Freddie remains a hero, not just for his music, but for his courage. He lived exactly how he wanted, even knowing the risks. He inspired millions, including those fighting the very illness that took him. Freddie once said, "I have lived a full life, and if I'm dead tomorrow, I don't give a damn." And that's exactly how he lived, fully, passionately, and without apology. But now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Freddie was right to keep his diagnosis secret until the very end? Or would speaking out earlier have changed the way the world saw AIDS in the 1980s and 90s? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Because at the end of the day, Freddie Mercury's greatest legacy isn't just his voice. It's his reminder to live life boldly, no matter the cost.